The Boys Season 4 begin with a quick recap of what had happened from the previous season. The story then finally begins in media res during an election night mission set at least 6 months after the end of Season 3, with new VP-elect Victoria Neuman busy with victory speeches. The scene then cut as we see the titular team trying to swap what seems to be Victoria Neuman's eye drops with acid, because if she becomes blind, then she won't be able to explode anyone's heads. Annie, Huey, Kimiko, and Frenchie are in position to begin the operation, but Butcher is out there vomiting his guts out. However, for a second, it seems like he is breaking the fourth wall to tell the viewers not to judge him for drowning in his pain and liquor, but he is actually talking to himself. Meanwhile, once he gains some semblance of stability, he accompanies Kimiko and Frenchie into the hotel where Victoria's election party is happening. But unfortunately, Butcher wasn't allowed to get into the building. The scene then switches to Homelander, who's seen taking a piss in the restroom. Homelander then meets with his son, but he seems to be afraid about the audience population. Homelander then comforts him. Meanwhile, Homelander, knowing that his rankings have gone down the drain after he murdered a human being in public, then came up with a plan to use Victoria's political influence to help him out. Although Victoria, knowing this, wants to obviously keep her distance from Homelander. But as expected, he uses the media to publicize his professional relationship with Neuman, so that she has nowhere to run or hide. The scene then switches to Butcher, who tries to get Ryan to come away with him. But Ryan seems not to listen as Homelander is his dad. Just then, Homelander then shows up, preventing Ryan from being manipulated by Butcher. He also points out that Butcher is going to drop dead any second because of the clot in his brain, which is making him weak, and that's why he is unfit to look after Ryan. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the hotel, Frenchie and Kimiko's, who attempt to replace Neuman's eye drops with acid, then fail, as Zoe arrives there all of a sudden. Unfortunately, it turns out that she also has Compound V, which then turns Zoe into a tentacle-mouthed Sue, and she is okay with killing everyone and anyone now. Kimiko and Frenchie barely make it out of there alive, as they jump through a window to escape while Kimiko fell flat on the floor with her face. While and Annie are out rescuing Kimiko and Frenchie, Neuman pays Huey a visit. Huey gets Neuman to talk about Zoe's transformation using Compound V, which she then informed him that she needed to protect Zoe at all cost. They both discussed about their past as friendly colleagues, while he prepares to splash Neuman with the rest of the acid, which he eventually did so, but unfortunately, Neuman is impervious to acid as he doesn't affect her. Butcher tries to get the jump on Neuman by shooting her head off, but even that doesn't work out because she is bulletproof too. Huey thinks that Neuman is going to explode their heads, but she says that they should opt for a truce because violence and revenge are not going to be fruitful. Then she went back to her ceremony. The next day, it's revealed that is officially working for the CIA. Butcher is there too because of his dynamic with Mallory, but he isn't allowed to enter the meeting between Mallory, and Robert Singer. then gets reprimanded for his and his team's failure, and he is reminded that he needs to take out Neuman before the conclusion of the elections. We then see as Butcher then reunites with one of his old friend called Kessler, and their conversation reveals that Butcher isn't the leader of his own team anymore. is. Although while they are focused on killing Neuman, Kessler wants Butcher to join him in his quest to kill Homelander. Kessler and Butcher apparently go way back as they work together in the Army Force, so Butcher is obviously willing to consider this offer. Monique meets to tell him that their daughter, Janine, is getting very violent, as she has been having a hard time since Todd moved out. While is glad that the Homelander supporter is gone, he wonders what Monique saw in Todd. He arrives at the conclusion that Monique probably needed someone to support her and love Janine after he separated from her. Although agrees to use his resources to get Todd back because he doesn't want to see Janine choose a path of violence. Meanwhile, Homelander is battling a severe PTSD as he relived most of the hardcore stuff he had done and the fact that he is surrounded by psychophants. We then see Deep as he is still clearing his name for being in a relationship with an octopus. Black Noir is back, but it's not actually the Black Noir we know. It's a superhero who has been hired to be Black Noir because the original one is dead. It's still Nathan Mitchell who is behind the mask. Butcher flips through the news and sees stuff on the ongoing case against Homelander, Firecracker's alt-right podcast. At their meeting, Homelander is getting frustrated by the team surrounding him that he orders Deep to blow a train, like giving him a hand job, and everyone is surprised by this. But immediately Deep tried to do so. Homelander asked him to stop and then laying his points that no one has the stomach to challenge him, which Homelander doesn't like. As soon as he exits the headquarters, Annie points out how erratic Butcher has been and says that they should cut him loose officially. Emmett agrees with Annie, but Huey loves Butcher too much to take such a drastic step, so he refuses to part ways with him. Butcher meets Neuman at the decrepit VOD video shop, which was prominently featured in Gen V. Butcher wants Neuman's help so that he can save Ryan from Homelander's grasp. But in return, Neuman wants Butcher to get Huey to erase all the data he has about the massacre she caused at her orphanage. But just then, Neuman basically agrees to betray Homelander because she knows that if she stays on Homelander's side, he's going to exploit her until the day she becomes useless, and she dies. Just then, Huey gets a bad news as he learns that his father has suffered a stroke. Nearby, Annie is working at a charity organization for at-risk teens called Starlight House, but since she refuses to put on the suit, it's running low on funds. Also, Frenchie works there too, and he is reunited with his friend Colin, whom he knows from an Addicts Anonymous group. Meanwhile, Kimiko notices that Frenchie and Colin probably had a relationship back in the day, and this reunion is bringing back memories. Homelander is seen collecting his pubic hair in a jar, seems to be saving them, which is kept in a case where he keeps a photo of Stormfront from her Nazi days, a baby feeding bottle, and a sword. Then he proceeds to go to a new soup, Sister Sage, who is introduced as the smartest one on the planet, and her room filled with books. Homelander is depressed despite being the head of VOT as he believes human as less than nothing as he sees them like toys to play with. Sage knows how genocidal it sounds, so she proposes an alternate approach that involves starting a civil war and using it to position himself as the Lord and Savior of humankind. After realizing that she is indeed what she says she is, he decides that he is going to recruit her into the Seven because he needs someone to tell him the truth instead of filling his head with nonsense, but she refuses at first, then seems to agree. Huey informed his teammate about his sick dad, and he blamed himself about not picking his dad calls when he had called him earlier. Just then, Butcherfingers began shaking seams from his illness. Starlight then came to pick Huey. The next day, Emmett takes Kimiko and Frenchie along with him, then go looking for Todd. While Emmett keeps an eye on the streets, Kimiko tells Frenchie that if he wants to be with Colin, romantically speaking, then he should go ahead with it, because he and Kimiko can't be romantic partners. This conversation is interrupted by an man as he spots Todd meeting with two other Homelander supporters and Sage. Todd and the fans are super excited to meet Homelander, and when he does show up in front of them, they barely manage to contain their enthusiasm. However, that feeling of joy soon turns into abject dread as Homelander orders Noir, Deep, A train to kill him brutally, but Deep believes this is just one of Homelander's tests, but just then, Homelander informed him that he's serious about this order, then he leaves the room. One of the supporters then decides to leave but was immediately smashed in the head by Black Noir, while Deep finished the rest. While A-Train doesn't kill anyone, he does stop Todd from running away, and he ends up being bludgeoned to death by Noir. Once the job is done, Sage tells them to wait there for further instructions. The scene shifts to the courthouse, where Homelander is deemed innocent, despite killing an innocent man in broad daylight. Sage gets there, dressed as his Starlight supporter, and she starts a riot. Frenchie and Kimiko arrive at the spot to save some of the Starlight supporters from getting lynched. During all this chaos, Frenchie seals his relationship with Colin with a kiss. A-Train then gets a text asking him to deliver the 3 dead bodies to the scene of the riot, and he has no option but to oblige. This takes the temperature of the scuffle to the stratosphere. Annie arrives just in time to save Kiara before she is torn limb from limb by a bunch of Homelander supporters. However, the damage has already been done, as Annie and her supporters are now associated with 3 murders. And then informs Monique that Todd is dead. At the end, Ryan reveals that he doesn't want Butcher to die, which drives a wedge in the already problematic relationship between Ryan and Homelander. We see that Deep is still in a relationship with that octopus. Frenchie is at Colin's house, and he picks up a family picture of Colin and his parents, and he suspiciously puts the photo frame down, thereby hinting at a link between him and Colin's family. Meanwhile, Huey's mother then shows up for her son and her husband. And finally, we see Butcher talking to Becca's ghost as he is still confused about what he wants from Ryan, Homelander, and Neuman. However, when by the explicit photo of someone's naked bum that he sends to Neuman, he is certainly not willing to become Neuman's accomplice. That said, Butcher has to work quickly if he wants to save Ryan from Homelander's clutches, because he doesn't have a lot of time on his hands, as proven by the worms, literal ones, just in case you think they are as imaginary as Becca, crawling in his head. Kindly subscribe if you love content like this to get the remaining recap of The Boys Season 4 episodes 2 and 3. Goodbye.